Hey guys, so those of you who have been following me for a very long time know that I used to make music major videos, like advice for people in music school, and I still do that to an extent, but I kind of wanted to go back to my roots and really talk about the first year of music school and what you should expect. It's July, and that means in probably about a month, those of you who are starting school are going to be moving and going to orientation and moving into your dorms and having auditions and doing all of the very exciting but very intimidating stuff that music majors do. And it's overwhelming, and that's a good thing, but it's also something that you're going to have to figure out how to handle. So, coming from someone who has done it before, I wanted to talk a little bit about it and give you some more information and just kind of give you an idea of what to expect so you're not going in blind. Those of you who don't come from musical families or are really the only musician that you know are going into it without a lot of experience and without a lot of information, and that's hard. And so hopefully this will help. The first thing is, don't be afraid to be overwhelmed. You're meeting hundreds of new people, you're living in a different situation. If you're living in the dorms, you're meeting your roommate, you're meeting all of these people that you're living with. You might have to share a bathroom with people, which is weird when you're first getting used to it. I mean, you've presumably shared bathrooms with your family, but different story, let me tell you. And you're also gearing up for ensemble auditions and things that are supposedly going to change the course of your career. And that's a big thing, is these auditions, they matter, but in the grand scheme of things, no one's ever gonna know. I was in the lowest band my first semester of undergrad. Does anyone care about that now? Absolutely not. No one's even gonna look. And I also made orchestra. Does anyone care about that? Not really. They care about how I play now and how I play on auditions and how I work with other people. So yes, the skills that I learned in those ensembles are incredibly important, but they also don't matter in terms of like what I actually did in music school, as long as I learned things. So you're gonna have a bad audition or two during your time in music school. It's going to happen. Don't beat yourself up about it. It is what it is. Like, everyone has them. And take it as a learning experience. There's always something to be learned in ensembles, and this is something that I've preached for years. Just because you're in an ensemble that's under your level doesn't mean that there aren't things to be learned from it. There are so many skills that you can learn, including how to play in a not so great ensemble, which is something that you have to do occasionally, from an experience like that. For me, I learned how to play piccolo really well in my first year at Toronto because I was playing piccolo in a band that I felt was under my level. In retrospect, it was probably an appropriate place for me to be at the time. And that's the other thing, is a lot of the time, you're being placed in these ensembles based on the experience and how it's gonna help you grow, not necessarily because you are the best player in the world. You might be someone that needs to be brought down a peg, quite honestly. And so having a not so successful audition humbles you and makes you think about yourself and makes you acknowledge that you do actually have to work. The next thing is, your teacher is your lifeline. Yes, they are your teacher, they are grading you, but they are also there for you. They are there to help you and they are there to guide you, and being open and honest with them is incredibly important. You don't have to tell them about every part of your life. Like, they don't need to know about your very terrible breakup necessarily. But if that's something that's really weighing on you and is making your life hard right now, then it's worthwhile telling them about. In my first year of undergrad, I had oral surgery. I was terrified and I had no idea whether I was going to be able to play again, and my teacher was aware of that. And she knew just how scared I was, and she was incredibly helpful. She was incredibly supportive, and she helped me come back. She gave me all of my options, including we could push my jury later, I could repeat a year if I had to, like, we could work through this, and she gave me all of the support in the world. And without me being open with her, she never would have known that, and she would have never known that that's what I needed. And I'm very lucky that my teacher in undergrad was incredibly supportive and was kind of a surrogate mother to me in a way. And not all of you are going to have that kind of relationship, but they're still there to support you. And if you're working with someone who isn't supporting you, then that's a sign that you might need to move on. That's hard because you could be at the best music school in the world, but you're just not getting along with your teacher. And that's something that really needs to be thought about. If your teacher isn't helping you, then maybe that school isn't for you. If there's another teacher at the school, then great, then maybe you could transfer studios or something like that. But if they're the only ones and you don't get along, then think about transferring. There's no shame in it. I know so many people who have and have been better off for it. And it's worthwhile taking the time to really reflect on whether this place is for you. Third thing is, yes, the academic courses are hard. You're in university, that's to be expected. Theory and music history are not easy subjects, and you do have to pass them. You do have to go to class. And I know every single video you've probably ever seen about university says go to class. And I'm not gonna say that I've been to every single class of every single course I took in university. I can't say that. But I went to most of them, and I went to the very important ones, and I did my work and I studied. You cannot pass these classes without studying, and yes, it takes time away from your practicing, but it also informs your practicing. These are not courses that you're forced to take just because they want you to be able to write in English, which I mean is also a helpful skill, unless you don't go to school where they speak English, in which case, different story. But they're there to help inform your musical practices and help inform you as a well-rounded musician. Being a performer isn't just being able to play your instrument well, it's also being able to interpret and put historical context on things. And along those same lines, the courses that you were forced to take outside of music can be applied to your musical career. A lot of the time, you just have a category to fill. So try to find courses that, one, interest you, and two, are actually applicable to music. There are a lot of things that you can take that are interesting to musicians. Languages, as a singer, usually you have to take some anyway, but that's a really direct correlation. I minored in Canadian history in undergrad because I could, basically, but also because I was living in Canada and I wanted to be more informed about where I was living. And that allowed me to be more comfortable in Canada as an American who had no connections to the place. And it also was just something that was fun. That's also something that you can keep in mind, is sometimes the music gets overwhelming, and so having a course that's not in music means that A, you're meeting people outside of the music school, and B, you have an outlet that isn't musical. It's stressful, it's scary, and music school isn't always easy. And having that one moment where you can just relax and not think about music and learn something new, it can be really, really helpful. And that's not always the case for everyone. Sometimes it's more frustrating to be working outside of music as well. But I think having that outlet and having that difference in your life can be really, really helpful. Along those same lines, having a social life outside of the music school can be really, really helpful and really beneficial. I'm not saying don't be friends with musicians. It's gonna happen even if you try not to. But having a few friends who aren't musicians can be really helpful, and it means that you have people to go to your concerts, because a lot of the times your friends are gonna be playing in your concerts. My best friend isn't a music major. She is a musician and she loves music, and she has been incredibly supportive of me over the past 8 years. But we met in the dorms, and she and I have become incredibly close despite the fact that she is not a classical musician. It's overwhelming, and this 10-minute video isn't going to give you all the answers that you need. I know that. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect and what to do or what not to do. I know I've made this video 3 or 4 times, so there are other versions of this on my blog and also on my YouTube. If I find them, I'll link them. Music school is awesome and it's so much fun, and you get to get better at your instrument, and that's the goal in the grand scheme of things. It's just a little scary, and everyone will understand that, and keep in mind that everyone else that you meet is going through the same stuff. I hope this was helpful. If you like this video, give it a like. If you're new here, subscribe. If you want to support me more, check out my Patreon, and I will see you guys on Thursday.